Oh, and welcome to Eternal Silver Moon Circles class number 2 of Sigils and Symbols. And we have a guest teacher tonight. This is Rootz Changing Moon, and she will share with us about runes. You're on.
Okay, thank you, Marcia. So my name is April. I'm also known as Rootz, and I've been working with runes for about, I don't know, 12 years or so. At first, when I started working with runes, um, I wanted to do something with divination. I wanted to try some form of divination. So I looked at tarot and I looked at runes, and I liked runes at originally I liked runes because they were so direct and simple, in my opinion, as opposed to tarot, which had a lot of details and a lot of things like that. So I really developed, a bond, and I resonated with runes a lot. So there's a lot of history, and originally, well, runes came from they come from a Nordic or Norse tradition, and there's stories about Odin and how he discovered the runes and things like that. Um, I'm not the greatest on the historical part of anything really, but I'm not that great with the history of the runes. But Josh Roper is a local Mid-South person. If you wanted to learn some more about that aspect of the runes, you could connect up with him. And I sent a link, on the page with his name on there. Um, sorry about that. So anyway, so basically when I started working with the runes, I really, enjoyed them and resonated with them. I have recently kind of switched over to where I work more with tarot, but I wanted to talk tonight not about the history or anything of runes, but more about how to use them in your magical workings. So there are 24 symbols that are, you can draw them out or you can carve them out. If you create a set of runes for magical workings or for divination or something, I prefer them to be on wood. Some people make them on stones. Some people, draw them on glass. My suggestion with all magical tools is to create them yourself, and to do it the hardest way. So painting them on might not get enough blood, sweat, and tears in there for you to really resonate with it. So like my first set, I had a little X-Acto knife, and I was really getting my energy into them, and I did have wounds. I did some wood burning part and burnt myself a couple of times, but it's really a way to get accidentally, of course, not on purpose, but it's really a way to resonate with what you're doing, is to create it yourself. So that's kind of about the energy of the runes. And of course, with all magic, it's about your intent. So I have a chart that I'm going to link up that'll have everything that I'm going to tell you tonight. I have a chart that you can use. But for me, using the runes for magic, I've done a lot of things. So I have used like in an oil, if you have like an oil that you're going to put on your body for the day, and you want to do a protection rune, on your heart, on your forehead. If you're doing a specific ritual and you want to, if you were high priestessing or high priesting a ritual and you wanted to anoint people as they came into the circle with a particular, drawing a rune on their head that went with your intent. With my kids, when they went to school, I put, I drew a rune on their backpack every morning, or not every single morning, but, just I put the rune, drawing it with my hand on their backpacks when they were little kids. So I wrote a couple of other things down about that. So I guess what I'm getting at is that you can do those things. Oh, another thing, like if you were cleansing your house with sage, you could draw particular runes in the air. with the sage. You can draw them in the sand, you can draw them in the dirt, you know. That's one of the things that I like about runes versus other, you know, forms of divination and magical work. They're just really clear and really easy to draw right out quickly. If you wanted to, you know, set an intention for a particular space very quickly. So if you wanted to use particular runes, you would need to, you know, have that set designated for that particular type of work. So if you were going to use certain runes for working with magical intent with one specific group, you would only want to use those runes with that group of people. And that's another way as far as energy resonating. You want to keep them kind of charged with that energy of that particular group. And of course, then the other thing is charging a rune with a specific intent. So for example, I have a rune, which is the one that looks like an R, and I'm going to go down the list and talk about what each specific rune stands for. But there's one that looks like an R. It's called Rhytho, and or Rhydo. It can be pronounced that way as well. And I have it hanging. I have a necklace that has that on it, just on a little charm, and I have it hanging by near my front door. So like on the coat closet in my front entryway, I just hung it over that last week when it was snowing, because everybody in my house was like in and out, you know, getting in their car and going somewhere and coming back and then going somewhere else. So this is Rhydo. So I had that. Now what I was getting at is charging. So before I put it up there, I put it, you know, in my hands and did, you know, a prayer for safety. And, you know, so really it was about protection, but it was also specifically for traveling. So that's why I decided to put that particular rune there. So you may have someone else that says, oh, if I were going to do a rune for protection for my family while they were going back and forth, I would do a rune that a lot of people use for protection, which is, hold on a second, sorry, which is AWIS or algaes. So those two are considered to be the protection runes. And a lot of people may, you know, say, well, if I were going to do protection, I would do those, you know, and put those up there. But for me, for that particular intent and what I charge that rune for, that's what it was for up there. So that is with all magic, where you get into the concept of what was your intent for what you did magically with that particular symbol. So I know that most of us understand that. And another thing that I like about runes is that you can find in other sigils is that you can find them in nature. You can find them in architecture. So I look around for them a lot of times just when I'm walking around in nature or whatever. I may look in the ground, I may look in the trees. I look in artwork sometimes for them, just to see if there's any particular messages that are coming to me, you know, through nature. So y'all have any questions about any of that before I go into, you know, the symbol, what each symbol means?
What made you choose Rhydo for protection versus the other two that you said were more recognized for protection?
Well, because Rhydo is for like travel and journeys. So in this particular case, I wanted everyone to be safe on their traveling because it was snowing. So that's why I chose that one that time.
Yeah, so you remember when I was we were doing our talisman last week. I used Rhydo. Can you see that? Because it also means movement, and since my intention was focus, I wanted the movement because I want to get going on my project. Yeah. So that's another use for that with a similar meaning.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that example that Marcia just gave and the one that I used for the protection thing for their travels just kind of goes into when I go through this list, and I have like I don't know if I told y'all a minute ago, but there's I'm going to put a worksheet on the on Marcia's group page, and it'll have like all of the things I'm going to tell you, like pronunciation, what the main keyword is, and that kind of thing. But I want you to particularly note that there's a column on there that says personal notes, because with all magic and all sigils and all intent, anything like what we're talking about in the mysteries really is, it's all about what it means to you. So, you know, of course you want to start out with a good base of knowledge, but if something is specifically speaking to you in a certain way, that is what it is for you, and that's what it means for you, and that's where your magic will work the best, is when you're specific to the way you resonate with that symbol. So I wanted to note that before I went through and gave you, you know, the general idea of each rune, because for example, when I first started reading, I was doing divination with someone and doing an actual rune reading. And this guy said, well, this looks like a symbol that was important to me in my Navy days. And, you know, what I had learned about the runes and what I had personally known about that rune and things had nothing to do with that, nothing to do with anything naval. But for him in that reading, it meant that to him. So that was part of his, you know, personal connection with it. So I'll just start going through all of these. Okay.
I really like the idea of drawing the sigils, drawing the runes in the air. And that made me think of when I do self-smudging, I usually draw a pentacle. But what can you think of? Is there a rune that might be good for that use instead of like a pentacle? When you're like, it's kind of a cleansing of yourself, you know, with sage.
Yeah.
What
So
you use in that situation?
So there's one called Allies, and it looks like, and I'll show it to you. It looks like an upside down peace sign without the circle around it. So I'll grab it real quick out of what I have here, so you can see it. But it's kind of like, this is for me, but I would say most people that work with runes would agree that it's kind of a standard one for setting something and protecting it. It's this one right here. It's the elk and the guardian rune. So, and it's, when I talked earlier about the two that are for protection, these are the two, all ye's and AY's. All ye's, this one, and I'll have a whole chart so you don't have to remember all of these, and AY's. But those are the two, like earlier when I was talking about when I would do one, like I do one sometimes over my kids just before. It was almost like the, you know, the Catholic thing. I do it on my kids, like if they're going somewhere and they're walking down the street and I'm like, okay, goodbye, you know, and I would just do it real quick.
I really like that. I'm going to do that more. I'm going to do that sort of thing more.
Like, you know, okay.
I think of drawing them in the air.
Put your little coat on. So we'll start out, and the runes really are thought of, this is more kind of a technical thing than using them for sigils, and I want to get to the sigil part, but they're thought of in 3 sets of 8. So that's kind of how I usually kind of look at them in that way, in 3 sets. So I'm going to just go down the line, and I will give you some info on each, you know, on each one. But like I said, all of this will be on the worksheet, so you don't have to worry about remembering it. So this is called Fehu, and this one means cattle or wealth. And so this one is about possessions, earned or won. So this one, and it's the first rune in, you know, in the set. So Fehu is one, like if you were going to place a bet or something, you know, you may want this one. This is about, basically it's the one about money. This one is Uruz. Now, sometimes you'll see Uruz with this arm all the way down. So Uruz is the wild ox, and it's about health, endurance, stamina. It is one of the more masculine runes. And it's the alphabetical correspondence that goes with this one is like the oo as in booze. So if you're spelling out a word that had that sound in it, you would use this one. This is the third rune. This is called Thoris. You'll hear it pronounced Thorisuz, Thorisaz. And this one is strong. Like when you talk to the people that really practice the Asatru traditions or the, follow those Nordic paths, this is the one that's considered like Thor's rune. And it's like called the Thorny Gates. And it's about choices. So this would be one that you may want to use in magic if you were kind of like at a crossroads and you had to make a decision. Obviously, like Thorny Gates, sometimes it would be a tough decision or something like that. This one is called Onsuz. So you'll notice it looks Fehu was like an F with the arms going up, and Onsuz is similar, but the arms are going down. And this one is a rune you would use I would actually recommend this one, Marcia, for things related to writing. This is called the Messenger rune. It's about insights and advice. So and this one goes with the letter A. So I've always considered this to be, this is like one of the runes that kind of personally was important to me from the very beginning. And you'll find as you work with them more regularly, you'll find certain ones will become kind of personal to you and will, resonate with you more than others. And this is a lot of times one that I would use if I was doing some kind of writing or working on some poetry or something like that. That one was always useful to me. That one can also be like if you wanted to consider some of these hand in hand. So like if you had an important decision and something coming up and you needed like advice or insight on it, you might want to draw those two together. And I also meant to say something earlier about the story originally is that Odin saw these when he was hanging on I forgot the name of the tree, but he saw all of the runes, but the story is that they were like in sticks that were laying like a line and a line, and then 3 going this way and 3 going this way. So they were like all kind of just plopped on top of each other, and every single rune, if you were to draw that on a piece of paper, every single rune can be found in that little layout. So that just reminded me of that when I was saying you can put 2 together, like you can put Isa, which is just a straight line, and then the one we just talked about, Thorisuz, so you could have the intent of both of those runes being in there, but if somebody looked at it, they may just think it was the one, Thorisuz, but personally that you also have Isa in there. Does that make sense? Okay. So talked about Onsuz. Rhytho, we talked about a little while ago. I can find it. Here it is. So Rhytho or Rado is about journeying. It's about travel and movement. And it can be about like the rhythm of life, the dance of life, that kind of thing. So But it can also mean like literal travel. And it's like it looks, it's the for the R. And the one just a second ago that I was talking about on Sue's, I don't know if I told y'all, that was for the A.
And then, is there a letter associated with Thorsu's?
TH together. So there's a different one that's just a T, and that one's T and H together. This is called Kanus or Kanas, different pronunciations. And this is one of the fire runes. There are two that are related to, well, three that are related to light, but they have kind of different meanings about light. So this one is like a beacon or torch. So if you were to just light something up instantly, you know, like if you're on a dark path and you just lit up your torch, you would instantly see everything right away. The letter for this one is C. And this one is like if you're wanting a revelation, you know, if you want something to be revealed to you. This one's also very helpful for like creative energy. So to kind of get the fires going and that kind of thing. So I think of it like getting a spark, you know, lighting a, sometimes people will say like light a fire under their feet. Like this is the one I think of for that. And that goes with the letter C or K. It's mostly phonetics when we're talking about the letters, not really, you know, they don't really necessarily go with a specific letter, but more the sound. So this one is called Gabo. And it's about balance. It's also called the gift rune. This one to me is about like generosity and exchanges. And like when I was first learning them, I basically just memorized words that went with them. And this one, obviously with the X, just exchange. And oddly, also this rune very much is associated for me personally with my ex-husband. So, you know, you'll find that as you work with them longer, that they will remind you of a certain thing or a certain person. And as with all magic, you know, whatever comes to you in that way is what it's supposed to be, no matter what books or me or anybody else tells you. What it means to you is what it really means for you. So that is Gabo. So that's about exchanges, generosity. Like if you had a situation where you felt like in a particular relationship or something, like if the energy wasn't being exchanged fairly, or if you felt like maybe you were giving more in a relationship than you were getting back, this is one of the runes that you would use in that situation to try to even out everything. So that is associated with the letter G, and sometimes associated with the letter Y. Oh, this rune sometimes too is associated with sacrifice. And that's more when you're talking like in the Asatru and Norse, you know, symbology or whatever. This one's considered to be related to sacrifice, but it makes sense with the other things stated in the meaning as well. And then this is Wunyo. Wunyo is one that I really, really like. I actually engraved this one on a necklace and wore it for a long time because it means joy. And it means like spiritual reward. So I always think of Wunyo, and it reminds me of one of my friends whose name is Joe. But I always think of Wunyo as just like a really, really happy, you know, exciting rune. But it also is like, kind of getting gifted back for whatever energy you've put into your spiritual work. This is kind of like your rewards for that, or an example of your rewards.
That's my favorite one.
And that one goes with the letter W. So now we're on to the second set of 8. Do y'all have any questions so far? Nope. Okay. So this second set starts out with some that are a little like not necessarily negative, but they're a little stronger, a little more harsh. So this is Hagalaz. So Hagalaz means hailstorm, and it is really about uncontrolled forces, like crisis sometimes, destruction, but it can, you know, so I guess what I was saying about the next few are not ones that you may use a lot in magical workings or in sigils, because most of the time with sigils, we're trying to do something positive. So, but this could be used because a part of this is about clearing things out. So like I would associate this with like, in the tarot, I would associate it with like the Tower card or something. So it's kind of about knocking it all over and starting fresh. So that is also, this is associated with the letter H. And then this one is called Now These. And this is literally about need and necessities. And it is sometimes called the survival rune. So, you know, you could use your own imagination as to what you might need this for in magical workings. And this is associated with the letter N. Okay, so this is called Esau. A lot of people call it Isa. A lot of people call it Isis. And this is just associated with ice. And sometimes it's about blocks, like blocks of ice. But blocks as in blockages. And then it's about standing still, taking inventory. Sometimes if you were working in divination work, it would kind of set the runes around it. So basically say, hey, you know, like stop and look at these closely, or stop and look at this. But this is one in magical work, you could use this, you know, really for just standing still if you needed to really just sit down somewhere and be still. You could also use this in magical work. You know, I don't know if any of you have heard of like the spell work where you freeze something, or you freeze, you know, a relationship basically, or something like that. You could use this for that intention as well. So, you know, if you wanted to just, when you have a certain person or something that you need to just, you know, freeze that up for a little while, that's what you would do with that. And that's associated with the letter I mean, E as in sleep. So Isa, so that one goes with the sound E. And then this one is the 12th rune, and it is called Yera. And like I said, I have all this written down, and I'll send it to Marcia on Monday. But this is about harvest, and it literally means a year, which I like that it's the 12th rune. This makes it a little easy to remember as well. So it's about seasons and cycles and reaping what you sow. And it's associated with the letter J. So now we're to those protection runes that I was talking about earlier, or one of them at least. And this one is called Iwaz. So this one is the yew tree, and this one is about dependability, and this is more like a defensive kind of protection. So the other protection rune is more like a shield, sheltered kind of protection, but this one's more about kind of like more of an action protection rune, if that makes any sense. And I kind of gave you examples earlier of how you may use this in magical work. And so this one is the sound I as in pride that goes with this one. I was. Earlier, I meant to tell you that some rune sets that you will buy, which I really don't know that you ever should really, I mean, it's not terrible to buy a rune set, but I think if you're going to use it in magical work a lot or for divination, you should make it yourself. But anyway, some rune sets will have a blank rune, and in my opinion, a blank rune is pointless because you have a rune that kind of is like a blank rune anyway. So if you buy one of those sets, just save it, because if you lose one of your runes, you can just make it into the one you've lost. But this is the one that essentially is like a blank rune. And this is called Perthro. Now, Perthro is called the mystery rune, and it's also associated with like a lot cup. So think of like if you were to throw all your dice in a cup and then just roll them out and see what you get, this is that rune. So it's basically just saying, it's like for tarot, I would associate it with like the Wheel of the Year rune, or not Wheel of the Year, I'm sorry, the wheel, which is just basically kind of saying sometimes you just get what you get and there's not a whole lot of rhyme and reason to it. Sometimes this rune can mean, you know, like, sorry, I just can't answer that for you right now. And that's called Perthro, and it is associated with the letter P. And some other things that this is associated with, this is the rune that's like associated with initiations and the occult and the mysteries and that kind of thing. So this is a little, if you were to say if there were a rune that would be considered a darker rune, this would be that rune. And then we have Alyi's, which is the other protection rune that I showed you earlier that looks like the upside down peace sign. This is a more common one that you see people use. Like I was saying earlier, when I would do the one like over my kids when they would go to school and on their backpacks and stuff. So this is the more common one, and it's more like a guardian kind of protection. So I mean, that's what it kind of feels like to me. So like if you're saging your house, you could do this one on all your window, you know, all your windows and doors or something like that. It is called, I mean, it's the elk rune. It's called the elk rune sometimes. And it's associated with the letter Z. And then Sowilo. This is one of the other, I told you there were 3 fire runes. This is one of the other fire runes. This one means sun, and I call it the success rune. So this is about victories and like a cleansing kind of fire. The Kanaz that we talked about earlier is more like an enlightening kind of fire, like a light up your way. This is more like clean it all out, you know, catch it on fire. And this is like also a good one, like for business related things and money related things and stuff like that. It's associated with the letter that it looks like. And now we'll move to the last 8. I'm just glancing to see where we are time-wise. Okay, so this is called Tiwaz, and this is a justice rune, and it's associated with the god Tyr, and it's very good for legal matters, and it's a very authoritarian kind of rune. So I'd say like if you had a court case coming up or something, you could put this one, like draw it on the day of that on the calendar or something like that. And this is called Berkano. This is the birth rune. So this can be about not just birthing actual people, but birthing ideas and making things happen. It's about new beginnings, liberation, fertility. And it goes with the letter that it looks like, which is B. Now this one, we had one earlier that was called All Yees. This one's called AWAS. This one is about partnerships. People say that this one is two horses working together. So basically, like if two horses were toting a cart, one horse can't go faster than the other, or the cart goes off track, or vice versa. So it's about cooperation, loyalty, and gradual progress. So this is kind of like a slow and steady rune. And it goes with the letter, so it goes with the letter A in my opinion, but some people can say the letter E also, because like in the word hey, like H-E-Y, it makes, so it goes with the sound A as like a long A. This is called Monos. Monos is what I call the mankind rune. And it's like about yourself. This rune is associated with intelligence, skill, social order. So this one's good for like business settings. This one's good for taking care of business. Like Marcia had this one in her sigil for her last ritual. So as far as getting something done and focusing on something, this is a good one for that. And it goes with the letter M as in man. And we're coming up on one that's one of my favorites. This is called Laguz. And this is really just the water rune. This rune is associated with flow. It's also associated with like psychic abilities and dreaming and that kind of thing. So like if you were wanting to work on some dream work, you could put this rune under your pillow. And it goes with the letter L. Also, this one's good for like emotional healing, in my experience. So you could use this one, you know, like if you were doing like if you were doing like a healing touch session with someone or something, you could use this rune, you know, you could physically draw this rune, you know, like on their back or something like that, or on yourself if you had a place of pain, but it's also more for like heart healing, as it's associated.
A rune for Reiki.
Yes. If you just to be clear, if you were doing something with like a physical healing, I would use that Uru's rune that I showed you at the beginning, which if you'll note, see how kind of similar they are. Yeah. But like if you were to draw it on for like a physical body healing, I would draw this one on because this is more associated with that kind of health. But this is more like emotional healing.
I had a question. So I think I read that there's 2 runes for water, and one is more like standing water and kind of stagnancy, and then one is more flowing. And I wondered which one that would be. That's maybe the more flowing water.
Yeah. So they're probably talking about Isa for the standing one, the ice one.
Okay. That makes sense.
I can't think of any other rune that would be watery other than that. I mean, there may be some that are, you know, that the element that goes with them is water, but those would be the 2 like water related runes, and one is definitely still and one is definitely flow. Okay, so that would be the flow one for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the next one, and that one goes with the letter L. Yeah, sorry, one little interruption. So the next one is called Ingwaz, and this one's about completion, and it is like about beginnings and endings and beginnings. So like I had some poetry that I wanted to finish up, and I drew this rune on the paper, you know, on top of what I wanted to finish, because I needed some completion on that. So it's kind of like about circling around and wrapping things up. The letter or the sound that goes with it is like an NG or an ing kind of sound. And then this is a rune that it's called Thaguz. And this one is dawn or gradual awareness. So I told you that there were 3 fire related runes. So this would be the 3rd one. And it's about like the sun rising to bring an awareness to a situation. So it wouldn't be like Kanaz where it just lights up immediately. It is more like that gradual awareness that you would get. Now, a personal association with this rune for me is changing woman, because to me it also looks like a butterfly, and that gradual change that happens in that versus just an immediate change in something. This is kind of like that progression. There is something about this that is about the place where opposites meet, which I kind of like about this one as well. It was just something I read one time, and I thought, well, I'm going to keep that in my notes about this particular rune. And this goes with the letter D, as in like D, the letter D. I don't know why I said D as in dawn. And the last rune is called Othala. And this is the ancestral rune or the inheritance rune. This is about family, hearth and home, traditions, and like I said earlier, inheritance. And it goes with the letter O. And that's all of them with their meanings. And I'll have a chart, you know, that I'll send to Marcia. But most of the runes, I was going to show you like the 2 water, the ones that you were talking about earlier. So a lot of them you'll see that are similar to each other in a certain way. You can even see like in meaning they're similar to each other, and also in looks. Some of these in your magical workings, you can transpose, you know, you can, so anything that you have in any of this, like right side up is the standard meaning. Transverse, which could be this way or this way, is just kind of like something's crossing it, you know, in meaning wise, something's kind of crossing that. And then reversed would be blocking, you know, so you could use that in your writings as well. It's in there right there. So do y'all have any questions about any of those? And you can also put them together. You know, you can, like I was talking earlier, you can put one with another and make a double meaning. You can put them side by side. So do y'all have any questions?
If you were to put some together, are you wanting to just put either protection or a certain element together? Are you only wanting to do 2? Can you do 3? Is there a certain number when you are creating a sigil, or even just putting them together in workings? Is it better to do 3, a certain number, a certain element? Is there one way that's better than another if you're combining them?
You know, not that I know of. For me, it's just basically what I mean, I wouldn't, it's like, I would say like think of like if you're mixing oils, you don't want to go put like 5 or 6 together. You know, it's usually good to stick with like 3 or 4. But if you really had something that you really felt like you needed 5 or 6 for, that's okay, as long as your intention in there is, you know, is, it's just kind of getting a lot into the mix if you get more than that, I guess is what I'm saying. But it's not like, if your intention is there, then it's going to do what you intend for it to do anyway. But I wouldn't go super far. And you can also, like, for instance, this one is already in this one, you see? So, or like the ones I just showed you a minute ago. So if you have in your mind that you want Isa is in all of them, really, you know? So you can use this one with the intent of Isa also being in there to like set it, because remember, Isa is like the ice one. Isa is the one that like freezes it and makes it set. So if you wanted to use this one with the intent of Isa being in it, you can. If you want to use it as itself and not have the intention of Isa in there, that's also up to you. Is that answering your question?
Yeah, no, I got it.
Yeah, I have some examples here that I just pulled up from my my Pinterest board on sigils. They're called bind or bind runes.
Yeah.
They are created from others. And so here's some examples. I don't know if you can read this. Let me take the spotlight off of it.
I have something as well that I can show. You know, you can keep going though, Marcia. And people do call them bind runes, is how most people pronounce
Here
that.
they are. Okay. Can you see those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a meaning behind that. Okay, can you read that?
No. I can see it, but I can't read it.
So Marcia has one that has, hold that back up, Marcia. I'm going to look at it real quick, please.
He put me on spotlight for a minute just to show this.
Okay.
All right. Here.
Oh, yeah. So I'm going to write one of those down. Okay. So I'm going to write that R with the C down. So for creativity. Okay. Okay.
It has like the K rune and the R rune.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Mm-hmm. So the reason I would assume, and you can make these up yourself, but you can use, like, say you could use this specific one, which is the one she just, the one I picked out of what she just showed, which is Rhizo and Canons.
That's creativity.
Yeah. So
there's here for focus too.
Yeah, my assumption would be that person picked those two for the creativity one. Oh, I see the focus one. Yeah, so they've got Tear in there and a couple of other ones. But say for this creativity one, my guess would be that they picked Rhizo for the R one for the because Rhizo is about like rhythm and journeys and exploring and that kind of thing. And then the C, of course, is for the one that has the creativity with it. You know, you could even consider that they may have Wunyo in there, which is joy, which is the one that's the P, or looks like a P. So you could go into a book and find one that someone else has made up for a particular intent, like that one said creativity, or if some other ones mean creativity to you, you could put that, you know, you could make your own or use theirs along with some extra of your own.
Okay. Now, if you were planning on using runes for the purpose of divination, what is your normal cast? Would it be 3, 5, 12? I mean, I guess it does depend upon what kind of reading you're doing, but
yeah. So when I did a rune, which is kind of a whole different story, but the meanings of the runes are generally still the same. But I did a general rune reading. I'm drawing it real quick just so you can see. So it was 7. So you would do those top 2 are restating whatever your intent was. And then the right 2 would come next. That is your past experience with this situation. And then I'm sorry, that would have been the left 2. So your top 2 would be your restating the situation. Your left 2 would be your past experience with that situation. Your right 2 would be your advice. And your middle is your result. That's the standard rune reading that I, the layout that I used every time. So you would read those top 2 together.
Are you familiar with the runic V spread?
No.
That's one that I used to use with my moon circle, quite some years ago. The last time I actually taught these sigil classes, I did do one on runes. It's just that I'm so rusty. I haven't been using them for a long time. So I really appreciate you sharing about that. But there's I can share the link to this also, or the image of it. It's called the runic V spread, and that's another spread for runes.
Are you just saying the letter V? Like runic?
Because it's the arrangement of the runes is in a V shape.
Okay. Okay. I just want to say that a second ago when I was shaking my head, somebody asked me a question in the room. I wasn't shaking my head at what you were saying. Okay. So I was going to glance back at my notes and see. I think that I said earlier about finding the runes in nature. One of the other things that I've done before is, spelling out people's names in runes, like in the sand. I used to, anytime I went to the beach, I would do, a little, like if I had someone particular that I was keeping in my prayers, I would, do their name in runes in the sand, or just their name in general. But so that was one of the things for me that I liked the most about using runes regularly. I use them a lot for divination. When I was working with them, I used them more for divination than necessarily for spell work. But of course, when you get really familiar with something, you use it in a lot of different ways. So do any of you have any ideas after kind of sitting in on this workshop, any ideas about something you may want to use them for?
I know I'm going to end up using them in my candle magic.
Oh, yes.
I do.
Anna mentioned that earlier. That's a really good one.
I like carving them, and I think that adding that extra intention, I mean, you've got your color, you've got whatever purpose you might be doing them, but I think the carving with the intention will actually add to it. I do a daily tarot pull, a weekly, a monthly, depending upon what I'm doing, but I usually have a single card. I might try it with a rune for a week, just once I get mine once I make mine or figure out how I'm going to do them.
Right.
To try that out, just to kind of see how that goes and what kind of feeling I have for them. But I love the idea and the meaning behind them. And I also do the shields. And at first I was just doing them with pentacles, but now that I'm understanding more about, I'll probably be doing the air things.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do. I mean, it felt very powerful, I mean, and I still do certain things like over my kids, but they're not little bitty kids anymore. Like, so I don't really do it like when they're just walking away from me now, but I might, now that I've talked about it, I might start doing it again. But it used to be like when they're walking, going to school or whatever, they're going out the door. I'm like, okay, bye-bye, and they're turned around and I just do it behind them when they go. But, yeah, that was one of my favorite things. And two, like saging, when you're doing sage, it feels, and like if you have a particular ritual that you have a group of people, and you're doing a particular ritual for a particular intent, you can even pick a rune that goes with that intention that you're doing that, for that ritual. So
I like you said, doing the anointing with
Yeah.
especially in ritual, because I've done them with the pentacles where you've you've anointed the head, the wrist, you're kind of doing the air for here, the feet, the knee. So there's when you're anointing them in that purpose for a ritual, that was neat. But I think it'd be really cool to add that extra intention if
Right.
there if that's part of a working you might be doing in a ritual. I think that would be a cool.
Yeah.
When you're anointing with essential oils, you mean an essential oil blend, right? You're not using the raw oils.
No,
Well,
it's whatever they have.
Carrier oil.
I use I mean, mine is usually, I don't even necessarily always have an essential oil, and I just have like almond oil or something that I've already blessed, you know, and then I'll just use it. I might have accidentally said essential oils earlier because I've been working with essential oils this week. I've been doing a lot of essential oils.
I absolutely cannot use those in their concentrated form on my skin. I would have to blend it.
Yeah. I learned my lesson last week. I've dropped some directly in my bath water, and I was like, nope, I know why they tell you to put it in a carrier oil now. Another thing I was going to say is at the beginning, I'm not sure if you were in here, Cassie, but we were talking about, I mentioned like the difference to me between so, you know, other symbols and things, like what drew me to the runes more than tarot at first was that they were so much more direct and simple, you know, so you can get a clear meaning. I know this workshop is not about divination, but for me, like divination wise, you go to tarot and you get like a whole conversation about what the problem and the solution are. You go to runes and you get like this is the problem, this is the solution, you know, and it's a little clearer and easier. So they're better for more direct information.
That's what I like about runes too.
Yeah. They're like just talking to somebody that's going to be like, this is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're my go-to if I like have a question, then I just draw a few runes, and I like that.
Yeah.
Pull them out and read
and
it.
I forgot to mention a couple of other examples of things you can do. It goes along with like the saging and things, but you can use them like in your cleaning, you know, when you do your mirror, you can, you know, draw it on your mirror, draw one on your mirror for whatever you want, you know, because once they're drawn on there, they're there even in, you know, if physically they're not visible anymore.
Mm-hmm. What would be one you might suggest drawing for a meditation, whether you're trying to clear your mind or if you're just trying to lower a little anxiety? Or is there one that you might recommend? Because a lot of times what I do is I'll take a tumbled stone if I'm feeling either stressed out or overwhelmed, whether it's whatever it might be, and I'll have an amethyst, or I'll have a opposite, depending upon if it's for grounding or whatever I'm doing it. A lot of times I'll have one that I've carried with me for that day if I already know that there's something going on or that's but if you're rubbing the stone or whatever, you could just as easily rub a rune into it. That would help associate the intent.
Yeah, for me, and this is, you know, Gabo, earlier when I was talking about this, it was, I was talking about like a gift rune and exchange. And
you said a balance too.
But this is a good one because of the balance part. This is a good one for grounding.
Okay.
Because it, you know, like it kind of even makes me think of centering you know, just drawing an X, you know, brings you to one point. So that would be a good one for grounding and centering, in my opinion. If you were talking kind of about more like a healing kind of thing, I always end up going to Laguz, which is that water one that I showed you earlier. That's like, here you go.
That one you said was for the heart matters.
Yeah.
Versus healing. Like physical healing, heart healing. I think we lost her, maybe.
And we're back.
Okay.
We lost April there for a bit. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry about that loss. So I think that I was talking about the Laguz rune. So I would use this rune for any healing kind of work that's needed. So when you were talking about grounding and centering, the Gabo rune is really good. But if you were wanting specifically to do that grounding and centering for some kind of healing, I would go with that log goose rune.
Okay.
So I will post the notes that I have onto the Facebook page. And if it's okay with y'all, my battery's getting a little low, so I'd like to wrap it up. Thank you a lot for coming to the meeting, and it's kind of like opened me back up to working with runes some. So, and thank you for inviting me, Marcia.
Yeah. Our next class is going to be in 2 weeks. This coming Friday, I will not be doing a dark moon ritual because we're hoping to go on a little camping trip. So we're ready to get out of Dodge. I gotta tell you. But so we're going to have class number 3, which is on astrological symbols and sigils.
Nice.
It'll be fun.
And
the
that'll
zodiac and the planets and the Behenian fixed stars and that kind of fun stuff. All right.
Cool.
Okay. So I'm closing down here.
Okay. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have later on the page.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you so much, April. We really appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Bye.